Following up from my main channel over at timcast.net, check out the video if you haven't, asking the question, what are Democrats doing right now if they're not really campaigning and for some reason they're bending the knee to the far left on crazy issues? We have this story from Gallup. Well, data, really. Black Americans want police to retain local presence. So what are the Democrats doing with all of this far left talk about abolishing the police? Okay, I know. People are already saying, Tim, the far left are not the Democrats. Don't conflate the two. No. Okay, hold on. While Joe Biden has specifically said no to defunding police, he did say yes to defunding police when he was asked the more specific question. Should we redirect funding away from police? And he said, yes, absolutely. Okay, I get it. He wants to play it both ways because the Democrats are terrified that no matter what they say, they are splitting their party in two. Well, I'll tell you what, the Democratic Party is already split in two. So perhaps this is why the Democrats are quite literally doing and saying nothing. Okay, I'm exaggerating, but for the most part, they're not really campaigning. At least Joe Biden's not hiding in his basement. And this is why. In reality, people like police. They do. Is it annoying sometimes when you have to deal with cops for certain reasons? Yes, of course. Is it frustrating when you get pulled over because you changed lanes improperly and didn't signal and now you go, oh, and now you're getting a warning or a ticket. You blew a stop sign. Oh, no, you got caught. You're going to get that ticket. Yes, people get annoyed sometimes because a lot of police interactions are negative. But guess what? Most people, especially most Black Americans, want their police. But it's actually crazier than that. They potentially want more police. It's not just about the same level. It's that they either want the same or more. So let me ask you about this New York Times op-ed. Yes, we mean abolish the police. Let me ask you about Minneapolis and Seattle, who have now moved to completely abolish their police. Are you nuts? Stop listening to Twitter. It is not the real world. Kind of. It influences the real world, I guess, but man, these people are trapped in bubbles. Now, I got another segment talking about that coming up, but let's read about what Black Americans really want. They say 81% want police to spend the same amount of or more time in their area. When asked whether they want the police to spend more time, the same amount of time or less time than they currently do in their area, most Black Americans, 61%, want the police presence to remain the same. This is similar to the 67% of all U.S. adults, preferring the status quo, including 71% of white Americans. Meanwhile, nearly equal proportions of Black Americans say they would like the police to spend more time in their area. As said, they'd like them to spend less time in the area. So I tell you what, if you came out and you wanted to maximize the impact, here's what Donald Trump needs to say. Trump needs to come out and say, my fellow Americans, we are going to guarantee the police will be in your area. If not, we will actually be increasing the amount of police in your area. And everybody will cheer. This explains why, with all of the rioting going on, Donald Trump actually saw his polling numbers improve ever so slightly when he sent out feds into the Portland area. Because surprise, surprise, people like police. They feel safe around police. Check this out. More time spent. Hispanics, 24% want more police. Now, interestingly, Asian Americans, 28% want less time, but still 63% want the same amount and 9% want more time spent. Among all U.S. adults, the majority, the overwhelming majority, want police in their area or more time spent in their area, not necessarily more police. These findings are from a June 23rd to July 6th Gallup panel survey administered by Web in English and conducted as part of the newly launched Gallup Center on Black Voices. The study includes large samples of Black, Hispanic, and Asian Americans weighted to their correct proportions of the population. So you know what? Maybe the silent majority is real. I don't have to sit here and wonder why it is that my videos do so well. Why is it? You know, sometimes I ask, right? Because I'll take a look at all these metrics, all these analytics, and I'm like, man, I guess people just like watching my videos. Perhaps it's because I have boring milquetoast centrist opinions that appeal for the most part to regular people who, lo and behold, like police. How insane is it? You know, the funny thing about it is that you're all sitting at home going like, yep, we agree. And maybe that's it. Maybe this is the crux of confirmation bias, saying normal things about American life that normal people tend to agree with. Maybe that's really what's going on. The far left has a loud voice that's being amplified by a speaker from these journalists who are insane, and regular people are fed up with it. Maybe the silent majority really is active. They're real. They're tired of sitting around hearing these things. And in reality, you take a look, man. I am humbled, to say the least, at the amount of viewership I get. And perhaps it's because most Americans really are closer to the middle, even liberals, even conservatives. On the conservative side, a lot of these people, a lot of these Trump supporters are actually fairly moderate center right. And so we end up all getting along with very obvious things like, what if I were to tell you that 86% of Americans were happy with the amount of police they had, or in fact, wanted even more police spending time in their areas? I think most people would be like, yeah, makes sense. I wonder how many people, who are engaging in politics have actually ever talked to a police officer. Seriously, because I see the far left coming out saying these insane things. And I'm like, have you ever, went and talked to a cop? Because it's mostly a boring interaction, same as with any administrative nonsense. Let's read a little bit more. They say, little difference by race in local exposure to police. Now, this is big. The survey also asked Americans to estimate how often they see police in their neighborhood. Black Americans' reported exposure to local police is slightly above the national average, with 32% saying they see the police often or very often in their neighborhood. And I'll tell you why this is so interesting. If all demographics, racial demographics, want the same amount or slightly more, but the black community says they see cops more, that means they're already above average in what they expect of the police and want even more than other minorities. Dare I say, the stupidest thing you can do is advocate for taking police away from minority areas because they want more cops and they already experience more cops on average. So you are doubly screwing yourself, Democrats. Most other black Americans, 41%, say they sometimes see police in their areas, matching the national average, while another 27 say they rarely or never see them. The slightly elevated frequency with which black Americans see police in their neighborhood has limited impact on their preferences for changing the local police presence. About a third of black Americans who say they often see the police in their neighborhood think the police should spend less time there, 34%. However, the majority of adults in this group think they should spend the same amount of time, 56%, or more time, 10%. Black Americans' desire for reduced police presence drops to 16% for those who sometimes see the police and 8% for those who rarely or never see the police. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe it is fair to say that Gallup has thoroughly debunked the abolish the police or even the defund the police narrative, and you have to be insane to support these things. You know what I say? Like most Americans, I think reforms make sense. It can be frustrating sometimes. Let's figure out a better way to do things. Hey, I got an idea. Let's fund the police. And that means we'll create new divisions within police departments for community policing, for social workers, for mental health care professionals. And then guess what? You have a police department, right? And you'll have an on-call mental health professional police officer. And when you get a call and they say this is about a homeless guy or someone mentally ill, they say, okay, we're sending out our specialist individual officer or unit. Guess what? That's more money for the police, not less. Why then would they want to get rid of the police? It's so obvious, man. You followed my videos, so you probably know what's going on in Louisville, where they're shaking down local businesses. They don't want competition. They want to come out and say, you're going to pay us from now on. Otherwise, Jim, smash the flower pot. Literally happened. You can't do that if there's cops around. So they're trying to fight for power. And these insane Democrats are giving it to them. Stop doing it. Or maybe what ends up happening is the polls are all wrong and Trump landslides. And I'll tell you what, man, we got good reason to believe the polls are all wrong. Black Americans lack assurance police encounters will go well. Now, this I can understand. They say fewer than 1 in 5 black Americans feels very confident that the police in their area would treat them with courtesy and respect. While similar to the 24% of Asian Americans saying the same, it is markedly lower than the 40% of Hispanic Americans and 56% of white Americans who feel that way. That is fair. Take that into consideration. We do hear complaints from people who feel they're not being treated fairly. Let's listen to this. Go over the stats, make sure we have the data correct. But I'll tell you what, even if people are unhappy with it, they still like the police in their area. They say, when factoring in those who are at least somewhat confident that police would treat them well. A majority of Black Americans, 61%, are generally confident. But this is still below the 85% seen nationally, including 91% of white Americans. I think this shows us something, too, some concessions from the right. White Americans do generally expect their engagement with law enforcement to be respectful, and Black Americans do not. I think that says something about the experiences Black Americans have with the police, and I can understand why many people would call for reform. But when they call for abolishment, nah, you're taking it away from the poorest and most vulnerable. And already in New York, they are begging for the police back. So let this be data actually shattering this narrative. Sorry, man. Black Americans want police to retain local presence or even increase their presence. But why is it that this narrative persists? Well, my friends, for this, I bring you now to the next segment coming up in just a few minutes. Journalists in their bubble, it's getting worse. I have Neiman Lab, a journalism outlet, saying straight up, guess what? All that polls, all that politics, it would seem the elite bubble is worse, it's smaller, and these people have no idea what's happening in the real world, and Democrats believe it. Stick around. That segment's coming up in just a few minutes, and I will see you all shortly.